The silent observers. Dr. Evelyn Carter adjusted her glasses, her fingers trembling as she scanned the latest readings from the orbital observatory. The data didn't make sense. The cosmic patterns were wrong. A disturbance on the outer rim of the Milky Way had sent a wave of gravitational anomalies rippling toward human space. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. Something, or someone, was manipulating the very fabric of space. She leaned closer to the screen, her pulse quickening. The galactic map, a vast navigational database maintained by thousands of alien civilizations, ended abruptly at the borders of human space. There were no known star systems, no celestial bodies mapped beyond, just an empty void. And yet, the anomalies were coming from there. Evelyn swallowed hard. She had spent decades as an astrophysicist, charting unknown regions of the galaxy, but never had she seen something so deliberately erased. She turned to her assistant, a young researcher named Jason Wu. Cross-check this data with any recorded stellar disturbances from the Andarian archives. Jason hesitated. The Andarians don't share their archives, Dr. Carter. They consider human space to be off-limits. Evelyn sighed, rubbing her temples. Then why does every major alien race avoid mapping anything past our borders? Why does every trade route stop at the edge of our systems, as if there's nothing beyond? Jason hesitated before responding. Because they're afraid. The words lingered in the air, unspoken truths finally verbalized. Evelyn turned back to the screen. If there was something out there that frightened an entire galactic community, humanity had a right to know, and she intended to find out. First contact. Far beyond the furthest human colony, a lone alien vessel drifted near the invisible boundary. Captain Vorak of the Kithari Dominion stared at his ship's scanners, dread pooling in his stomach. The galactic map ended here. No Kithari ship had dared cross the threshold. No one who entered human space ever returned. But Vorak had no choice. His ship was damaged after a failed skirmish with a rival faction, and they had been flung into this forbidden region by a miscalculated jump. Their distress beacon was active, but no friendly signal had responded. Only silence. The crew muttered among themselves in hushed tones. Vorak could feel their unease. What if the stories are true? His second-in-command whispered. What if the humans have some weapon? Something that makes their space a graveyard for intruders. Vorak exhaled slowly. He had heard the legends. Tales of entire fleets disappearing without a trace. Of scout ships sending a final fragmented transmission before vanishing forever. He refused to believe in ghost stories. Prepare the subspace relays, he ordered. We'll send out one last distress signal before attempting an emergency jump out of here. The moment the message was sent, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. Vorak gripped his chair, eyes widening. Something was coming. Humanity's forgotten secret. Deep beneath the mountains of Mars, General Adrian Vasquez stood in a classified military facility, arms crossed as he listened to the reports. There's been another incursion, his intelligence officer stated. An alien vessel drifted too close to the border. Vasquez grunted. And the officer hesitated. It was taken. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Vasquez nodded grimly. Who else knows? Just us, as always. Vasquez turned toward a massive screen displaying a classified star map. While the galactic community saw only an empty void past human space, he saw something else. Redacted zones, concealed structures, and the network. The truth was simple. The reason no alien dared cross the threshold was not because of humans themselves, but because of what humanity had hidden there. A weapon, a guardian force, something worse. Even Vasquez didn't have full clearance. He only knew one thing. Anyone who entered human space without permission never came back. Whispers from the void. The Kithari vessel trembled, its hull groaning under an unseen force. Captain Vorak gripped the armrests of his chair, his spines bristling with primal dread. The ship's external cameras displayed nothing. only the blackness of space, stretching endlessly beyond human territory. But Vorak felt something watching them. A presence. "Status report," he barked. "Captain, all systems are operational, but something is interfering with our navigation controls," his second-in-command, Tarlis, reported. "We can't turn back. It's as if the ship is being held in place." "By what?" Vorak growled. Tarlis hesitated. "Unknown." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Vorak had never seen them so shaken. Kithari warriors were bred for battle, trained to face the horrors of deep space without fear. But this was something beyond their understanding. Then, the distress beacon flickered and died. The silence was suffocating. Vorak's mandibles clicked anxiously. "Initiate an emergency warp jump. Get us out of here, now." The helmsman complied, clawed fingers dancing over the controls. But instead of the familiar hum of the hyperdrive charging, the lights dimmed and an eerie static filled the ship's communication channels. Then they heard it. A voice, no voices, whispering in an unrecognizable language. The sounds were layered, overlapping, ancient. It slithered through the speakers like a phantom crawling into their minds. Tarlis recoiled, his skin turning a pale shade of blue. That language. It's not Kithari. It's not any known tongue in the Galactic Codex. The whispers grew louder. Vorak's vision blurred as a cold pressure settled in his skull. His thoughts became sluggish, fragmented. He could feel something probing his mind, sifting through his memories, dissecting his fears. And then it spoke. "You are uninvited." The voice reverberated through the ship, shaking its very frame. Vorak's blood ran cold. This was no malfunction. This was an intelligence, one that had been lurking in human space, unseen, unheard, and now, aware of them. "You were warned. You do not belong here." A wave of energy surged through the ship. Consoles exploded, sparks showering the crew. The gravity flickered, and Vorak felt weightless for a brief moment before slamming back into his seat. Then, the sensors came alive. Something massive loomed ahead. A structure. No, a fortress, blacker than the void itself. It stretched beyond the ship's ability to scan, its sheer scale making even the largest Kithari warships look like insects. It had no visible weapons, no heat signatures, no signs of life. And yet, Vorak knew it was alive. The whispers returned, now resonating from the structure itself. "Leave, or be unmade." Panic set in. "Captain," Tarlis shouted, "I'm detecting a power surge. Something is locking onto us. Brace for impact." But the impact never came. Instead, the ship was dragged. An unseen force yanked them toward the fortress with terrifying speed. Vorak struggled against the artificial gravity, his heart pounding as the ship was pulled into the structure's gaping maw. Then, everything went dark. The hidden hand of humanity. "Another one has been taken," Colonel Isaac Reef muttered, staring at the holographic display in the classified Lunar Command Center. Across the room, General Adrian Vasquez exhaled through his nose, his expression unreadable. "Which species?" "Kithari," Reef responded. "A small scout vessel. They drifted too close." Vasquez turned to the technician monitoring the deep space anomalies, any signs of distress signals reaching the galactic network. The technician shook his head. The black zone intercepted all transmissions. As usual, no one outside our domain has any idea what happened. Vasquez nodded. This had been protocol for over a century. Humanity had spent the last 100 years crafting an illusion that their borders were dangerous, cursed, even haunted. Every alien race in the galaxy had learned to fear human space, to avoid it at all costs. But not because of humans themselves, because of what humans had hidden there. Reeve crossed his arms. At some point, someone is going to start asking questions. "They always do," Vasquez said. "And then they disappear." The Lunar Command Center was built beneath the surface of Earth's moon, hidden from prying eyes. It was the beating heart of Project Black Zone, a classified initiative dating back to the early days of humanity's expansion into space. And its purpose was simple: to protect the secret buried at the edge of the galaxy. Vasquez gestured to the hologram. "What's the status of the Kithari vessel?" "Currently being held within the perimeter grid," the technician replied. "Neural disruption protocols are active. Their crew is experiencing controlled hallucinations. We're making sure they'll never be able to report anything coherent if they return home." Reeve smirked. "If we let them return home?" Vasquez remained silent. Some ships were released, their crews driven mad with cryptic nightmares. Others were absorbed. Because the true purpose of the Black Zone was not just to deter alien trespassers. It was to feed something. The prison at the edge of the galaxy. Beneath the classified facilities, far below the surface of the moon, something ancient stirred. A containment chamber, miles deep, housed a structure unlike anything mankind had ever created. It pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, its obsidian walls shifting as if alive. It had been found long ago, buried beneath Earth's crust, a relic from an age before humanity's first words were spoken. No one knew who built it. No one knew what it was. Only one truth had been uncovered. It hungered. And so, for the past century, humanity had been feeding it. Ships, aliens, knowledge. The Black Zone was not a defensive perimeter. It was a prison. And the thing inside was waking up. The awakening below. A low hum pulsed beneath the lunar command center, vibrating through reinforced steel and layers of classified infrastructure. It was subtle, like the distant roar of an ocean, but to those who worked deep within the facility, it was unmistakable. The prison was stirring. General Adrian Vasquez stood in the observation chamber, a thick pane of transparent alloy separating him from the void beyond. Below, the containment chamber stretched for miles, descending into the lunar bedrock. At its center, the obsidian monolith pulsed with a slow, deliberate rhythm. It was awake. The whispers had started again. Not in words, not in language, but in impressions, thoughts that did not belong to the minds that heard them. "Increase neural dampeners," Vasquez ordered. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt the familiar weight of unease pressing against his chest. A technician nodded and input the command. Deep within the chamber, unseen mechanisms whirred to life, sending waves of electromagnetic interference designed to suppress whatever intelligence existed within the monolith. It did nothing. Vasquez exhaled sharply. This was happening sooner than expected. The monolith had remained dormant for decades, stirring only when fed. The encounters at the Black Zone's edge were designed to keep it pacified. Alien ships ensnared in fabricated nightmares, their crews driven mad or erased entirely. But something had changed. "We need to determine why it's reacting," Vasquez muttered. "What triggered it?" Colonel Isaac Reeve, standing beside him, tapped at his wrist display. Running back through the latest Black Zone incursions, the last ship was the Kithari scout vessel. Vasquez's brow furrowed. Standard protocol was followed. Yes. Neural disruption, induced hallucinations, containment procedures, no breaches, Reeve confirmed. Then why is it still awake? Vasquez murmured. He turned back to the monolith. Its surface was shifting, as if something beneath the stone was pushing outward, trying to emerge. No, not trying. Preparing. Vasquez had spent his life maintaining this prison. He had inherited the responsibility from those before him. Men and women who had discovered the structure buried on Earth, who had hidden it beneath the lunar surface, who had built an entire defense network to keep it contained. He understood one thing with absolute certainty. If the monolith wanted something, that meant it was no longer content with what it had been given, and that was dangerous. The unraveling mind. Deep within the perimeter grid, Captain Vorak clutched his skull, mandibles trembling. The whispers were louder now, filling his mind with images, memories, that were not his own. He saw fire and stone, civilizations crumbling under an unseen force. He saw worlds, not just one, but many, withering into dust. Then he saw them. The humans. Not as they appeared now, but older, more advanced. Their ships were vast, their technology godlike. And yet, they were afraid. He could feel their desperation, their terror. And the whispers spoke again. They buried me. Vorak's breath caught in his throat. He had no mouth, no voice in this vision, but he felt the words slithering through his mind. They thought they could keep me hidden, but they only delayed the inevitable. The vision shifted. He saw the humans building their prison, hiding the monolith beneath layers of reinforced stone and metal, erasing its existence from history. They sacrificed their own to keep it silent. But it had never been silent. It had been watching, waiting, and now it was awake. Vorak gasped, snapping back to reality. His vision blurred, the containment chamber around him flickering in and out of focus. He was back on his ship, but the presence in his mind was still there, lingering like an echo. His crew was in disarray. Some were unconscious, others convulsing, caught in the same nightmare. Then, the ship trembled. A warning siren blared, and the bridge lights flickered. Vorak turned toward the main viewport, just in time to see the perimeter grid unraveling. One by one, the massive black structures holding their vessel in place were collapsing, their artificial gravity fields failing. Something was breaking the black zone. Something inside it, humanity's last line of defense. "Sir, we have a breach in the lunar containment facility." The technician's voice cut through the silence, and General Vasquez turned sharply. Location: lower sublevels. Section Omega-7. The monolith is destabilizing its surroundings. Gravitational fluctuations are increasing beyond predicted levels. Vasquez swore under his breath. This had never happened before. The monolith had tested its constraints before, but it had never actively fought back. Reeves slammed his fist against the console. Whatever's happening out there with the Kithari ship, it's connected to this. Vasquez didn't need convincing. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Lock down the lower levels. And get me a direct link to the Defense Council. Now. A red warning flashed across the holographic display. Containment integrity: 82%, 76%, 69%. Vasquez's stomach tightened. If that number hit zero, everything they had worked to suppress, everything they had sacrificed to hide, would be unleashed. And he had no idea if humanity was prepared to stop it. A galaxy on the brink. Far beyond the Black Zone, on the distant homeworld of the Kithari Dominion, Supreme Commander Valis watched the encrypted reports with growing unease. Another ship had disappeared near human space. Another crew lost. For centuries, the Kithari had avoided the cursed void at the edge of the Milky Way, just as all other species had. The stories of ships vanishing, of voices that whispered from the darkness, were dismissed as myth. But Valis was no fool. The humans had expanded quickly, too quickly, for a species that had supposedly started from nothing. They wielded technology beyond their years, energy sources that defied explanation. And now, the Black Zone was crumbling. Valis exhaled slowly, flexing his claws. Perhaps it was time to send something stronger than a scout ship. Perhaps it was time to test the humans. Because if they had been hiding something this entire time, then whatever lay beneath their worlds was not just their problem. It was a threat to the entire galaxy.